All right. So I know zero about climbing anything. Like I maybe climbed a tree when I was a kid, maybe took my kid to a climbing gym once. I know nothing. So if I'm going to look for postpartum and pregnancy climbing, I'm going to come to Joy. And she recently changed her Instagram handle, and I have to put it up here because I'm going to do her old one. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to bring Climbing with Joy. I'm calling you Joe. Climbing with Joy to the podcast. Thank you, Joy, for coming on. So happy to have you.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited to be here.
And you've got the curly hair now too. You didn't do that as much
Hmm.
before. I love that. So
Thank you.
tell us a little bit about yourself. You've got a couple of kids.
Yeah, actually, I have three. Two of them make very regular appearances on my social media. One does not because he's 16 and a half. So
Too
he
cool.
thinks, he thinks I am, in his words, cringy. So he doesn't,
Love it.
he's not around a whole lot. But yeah, I have a 16-year-old boy. I have a 2-year-old little girl, and I have a 1-year-old little
Oh
boy.
my goodness.
So
I bow down to you. Like that takes some serious skill to manage teenage to baby, although there's a decent amount of crossover there.
Yes, yes, there is. I don't know that I'd necessarily recommend it, but I wouldn't take it back, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. And how long have you been climbing?
I have been climbing for about 14 years.
Oh my gosh. And what
Mhm.
got you into it?
Well, I think that this is something probably a lot of climbers can relate to. It was actually a guy that got me into it, and he's long gone, but the
Okay, the
climbing
climbing
stuck
stayed.
around. Yeah,
Nice.
the climbing stuck around. I've always really been into trail running. I've been trail
Mhm.
running for probably 20 plus years.
Awesome.
And, to be completely honest, there was a guy hitting on me on a bus, and then things kind of developed. We went on a trail run. He's like, "Oh, you like trail running? You would probably like rock climbing." And then I tried rock climbing and I loved it. And I was like, "Okay, you suck. Rock climbing is great. So we'll just
Awesome.
let that be that." Yeah.
I love that. Awesome. And so you started climbing after your first was born.
I did.
And
Hmm.
so, like, I mean, obviously 14 years ago, there was no how-to manual at all, and probably maybe a few more stank eyes in the gym kind of looking at you. Like, what was that experience like?
You mean just starting climbing as a mom?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. There were no other moms really in the
Yeah.
gym. I was the only one. Thankfully, I had a really supportive group of friends who loved on my son, and, just he palled around with us whenever we went out to the crag. It's like what climbers call the place that you go climbing outside. And he definitely spent quite a few years, quote unquote, growing up at the crag. But it was hard because now there has been a lot more emphasis around how you can make climbing work as a parent and how
Mm,
to incorporate your children in this sort of lifestyle. But back then, when my son was really young, there just really wasn't that much of it. But climbing
mhm.
was also way less mainstream than it is
Right.
now. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, there weren't gyms, climbing gyms or things like that at all, really.
Well, I mean, there were, but definitely not. I mean, not like there are now, not at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was hard. I wasn't. I wasn't a trainer when I started climbing, so there was also like a very
Mm.
different aspect to that as well. But just as far as like being a climbing mom, and I was a single climbing mom, which there were like this many, very small amount of climbing moms, and there were zero single climbing moms. So
Right.
yeah, it was, I look back now and I'm like, "Wow, that's pretty crazy I did all that."
Right? And then
Yeah.
when did you become a trainer?
So, I have been training full time for about 5 years now, but I like to say I've been dabbling in it for literally as long as I can remember. For my high school project, we had like a year-long project we had to do. I
Yeah.
became an aerobics instructor and like
All
taught silver
right.
sneak. Yeah, I did. I got my AFA certification, like group exercise, and was in there. I had a silver sneakers class that I did. I had a mommy boot camp class that I did.
Mhm.
So I think, I was 17, 18 years old at the time. And ever since then, I've always been involved in fitness in
Yeah.
some way. And about 5 years ago, I made the transition from working in a desk job at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill to training full time. So,
Awesome.
mhm.
And then when did the mashup occur? When did you realize you're like, all right, there's a bit of a gap here in the
Yeah.
climbing world. We need some education.
Yeah. So when I first started training full time, I was working at a gym where I saw anybody and everybody. I worked with young girls who were on competitive jump roping teams, and I also worked with older individuals who had had hip replacements. I mean, there
Mhm.
was just literally I anything that came through the door. If they wanted to work with me, I had to say yes. I had no choice, which was really good
Yeah.
because it gave me a lot of experience. It gave me a lot of reps. I was able to develop a lot of knowledge, but it also helped me realize what I do and don't want to work with
Mm,
and who I resonate most with and who I feel like I can help and identify with.
yeah.
And I found that I really enjoyed and felt very passionate about working with moms. I loved it, whether they were thinking about getting pregnant, postpartum, or had, younger children. I just felt like we clicked and that
Yeah.
felt good. So I started to think, well, like, I actually don't have that much specific knowledge around helping moms. I don't have that much knowledge around pregnancy, postpartum. And at the gym that I was working at, I was the only female trainer. There were 5 trainers, and I was the only female trainer.
Mm.
So I asked, my couple of the other trainers who were supposed to be my quote unquote mentors. So, like, what do you do when you have someone who's pregnant? I'm sure you can know where this is going.
What was the answer?
Yeah. So one of them told me just Google some shit.
Nice.
Yeah. The other one said, "Oh, well, like, they can just get on the elliptical or whatever." And then another one said, "You don't change anything." And
Wow.
I knew that none of those answers were right. I didn't know what the right answer was, but I
You're like
knew it wasn't that.
the least offended by any of that. Like,
I I just I mean, I hate to say this, but I felt like it was par for the course just
yeah.
because
No,
I
I know.
was always the one who was like, "Oh, I was told you need to stop trying to write perfect workouts. Don't worry about everybody's form so much." Like, I'm glad to have had that experience, but I'm also glad to not be in that world
Yeah.
anymore. So I dived into pregnancy and postpartum education.
Yep.
And it was just literally like the avalanche kind of started from there. So at first, I decided, okay, well, like, I'm going to make this my focus a little bit more. And I was still climbing, but I hadn't really started to put the two and two together. I think just because for me, just being exposed to all that encompasses training an athlete during pregnancy and postpartum was still very much new. And I
Right.
wasn't quite sure, like, how could I, or is it possible to apply this to
Yeah.
climbing? I don't, and I also didn't feel like I knew enough yet.
Right.
So anyway, as things kept going and evolving, I had some climbers start asking me, well, but like, I'm pregnant. So what should I do? And I just started to realize there's literally nothing.
Nothing.
There's nothing. So there is some anecdotal, athletes who have climbed while they're pregnant, like professional athletes
Right.
who have climbed while they're pregnant, but there's no actual recommendations as far as, okay, I'm a climber, I want to keep climbing, what do I do? Or I'm postpartum now and I want to get back on the wall, what do I do?
Right.
So I was like, you know what? I don't have anything to go on. I'm going to be in a little rowboat all by myself.
Yeah.
But like, here we go. Let's take the anchor up and just go. And it's really very much been a learn as I go sort of thing because I had to start working with more climbers while they were pregnant and working with climbers
Right.
postpartum to figure out, like, hey, does this work? But I knew that I felt really confident in what, kind of considerations, et cetera, we need to think about while working with someone during pregnancy or early postpartum. And I know a lot about climbing because I have been climbing for so long. And
Right.
I knew I was like, well, it may not be the very best, but it is better than nothing. And
Yeah.
I will have to say that I've just been like blown away, and it makes my heart want to explode. Like at when I get climbers who are telling me like I can boulder again without worrying about my prolapse, and like I'm
Yes.
feeling really strong on the wall, and I mean just seeing their pelvic floor symptoms improve and the confidence that they have, it just I'm like, okay, it was worth it.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. But we were talking a little bit before we got on about, really that's where a lot of this stuff came from. My experience is very similar. Um, even in PT world, like I started as an orthopedic PT, then I did pelvic health. They were very, very separate. And then one day I'm like, well, this is really stupid. Mash it up. And you talk about extrapolating, I call it bastardizing information because there's no, like
Mhm.
at least we're finally getting stuff and running, but it's all kind of like, hey, what's actually happening? It's a lot of that baseline introductory kind of establishing stuff. Climbing, it's like nothing. And
Mhm.
so it's either it's you either wait, kind of like what you said before, you're like, either I wait for the research that's not going to come for forever, or I get up and I do the best I can with what I know. And that seems like that's worked pretty well.
Yeah, no, I would say it's working and it continues to evolve. So
Yes.
whenever I learn something new or something kind of, I see things sort of like changing in the research and whatnot, I try to think through critically, okay, well, how does this apply to
Yeah.
climbing? And the thing that has been really amazing is being able to be more informed and because I'm not a pelvic floor PT. I'm not a physical therapist. I don't there are things that are absolutely outside of my scope. But what I can do is take work that people like yourself, or you had Margie Davenport on a couple of episodes ago, work that is coming out of what you guys are doing and take that and help guide climbers
Yes.
within the realms of okay, so we know that this is generally recommended. And the other thing that happens too is like the reverse, because
Yes.
a lot of PTs or pelvic floor PTs, they don't understand climbing, and there's
Yes.
a lot of misconceptions around climbing. I feel like a lot of people think it's just this super risky kind of, I don't know, adrenaline junkie type sport. And yes, there are parts of climbing that are risky, but there are many ways that climbers can mitigate risk. And the more experienced you are, then the more well versed you are in mitigating these risks. So I think like the reverse is also true in helping practitioners or understand a little bit more. Okay, like this is what climbers are actually doing. This
Mhm.
is what the sport actually demands, so that I can, work together, in a more like symbiotic way with
Yes.
their patient to get them to where they want to be.
That's so incredibly important because I think, you can say this about a lot of different sports, that physical therapists in general and pelvic floor PTs, like maybe when I bet if you ask them, well, what do you think about when you think of climbing? They're going to think like El Capitan and like the guy that's solo climbing that they saw on Netflix, right?
Right. Yeah.
So doing that pregnant, maybe not the best idea, but
Right.
my guess is you don't find pregnant women doing that. I mean,
No,
granted,
I think there's only one person in this world, and his name is Alex Honnold, who will
yeah,
do
right.
that.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, basically, we're just Rihanna now doing a halftime Super Bowl halftime show, and that's good enough for me. But no, but like, I think that brings up such a good point. And we were talking earlier about how this kind of parallels kind of our road that we've seen with CrossFit and running, because 2013 there was that video that came out from CrossFit. They're like, this woman's like, oh, I'm an OBGYN, it's totally fine to pee when you lift and all that kind of crap. And the evolution, we were so anti, CrossFit. And then, you look now and you see so many sports and ortho PTs working out of boxes, and pelvic floor PTs, who don't do CrossFit going to courses to learn what those movements are. It's just a different scale
Mhm.
than climbing. I mean, same thing with running until the UK guidelines in 19, like unless you were in that sport and understood things like
Mhm.
drills and whatever, like you're just throwing things at the wall and hoping they stick. Now we at least have a little something to go on, but
Mhm.
otherwise you're just going based on people's assumptions of what they think,
Right.
climbing is. Like my only experience in a climbing gym, I think my son's 4th birthday he had at a climbing gym, and I wasn't going up on that wall, but that was just me because I don't like heights. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but a 4-year-old's experience and my experience probably would be completely different. So,
Right.
so what are some of the most common challenges? Let's start with pregnancy, and then we'll go to
Mhm.
postpartum. Like, probably the first question I would think with a pregnant mom would be like, okay, what do I even do? Especially a first time
Mhm.
mom. So what are
Mhm.
some of those questions, and what do you tell them?
Yeah, so as far as climbing during pregnancy, one of the big things to navigate there is safety. And
Yeah.
that's one of the questions that I get the most. Is it okay for me to climb? Can I do X, Y, and Z? And so what I do is I say this all the time, and it's gonna sound weird when I first say it, but I actually don't care if you climb, not in a mean way. I'm gonna support you if you want to climb. I'm gonna support you if you don't want to climb. I'm going to help you, guide you through the information that we have. But in the end, the decision is yours. There's no way we can say that there
Yeah.
are not inherent risks with climbing, because there are inherent risks with climbing. We also know that there are lots of ways to mitigate risk, but at the end of the day, we cannot say that climbing is a zero risk sport. It's just
Right.
not. We also can't say that getting in your car and driving to the grocery store is zero risk. But I mean,
Right.
like we do have a choice about getting in the car and going to the grocery store. We have a
Mhm.
choice about getting on the end of a rope and going up a wall. So, just as like a general disclaimer, I want anybody who's out there who maybe is trying to decide, like, well, I don't know, like, is it okay for me to climb during pregnancy? I think that you have to understand the decision is yours. It's not your OBs, it's
Yeah.
not your PTs, like it's your decision. And you need
Yeah.
to feel really empowered in whatever decision it is that you make. And that
100%.
decision may change over time too. So, anyway, when we're talking about climbing during pregnancy, of course, we assess fall risk, and there's for this the purposes of this, we can divide climbing into kind of these two broad categories. There's one called bouldering, and there's rope climbing. So
Mhm.
bouldering is when you generally climb not quite as high, but you don't have a rope. And then rope climbing is when you are in a harness and you have a rope attached to you. And there's two other types of rope climbing, that kind of like subcategories. One is called lead climbing, and one is called top roping. Top roping means that your anchor point is fixed up at the top of the wall, so that
Mhm.
as you climb up, the rope slack is taken up in the rope, so you essentially don't fall. When you're lead climbing, then you have to affix the rope into fixed safety points as you're climbing,
Okay.
and there is a possibility that you can fall while you're lead climbing. So just going through, okay, so during the first trimester, I'll have a lot of people ask, like, well, is it still okay for me to lead climb? And just kind of talking through, okay, so, we know where the uterus is in the pelvis during the first trimester. It's, tucked way down inside, but we still don't want any blunt trauma to the abdomen. Like, we're really trying to avoid all this. So if they're going to a crag outside where they know there's like more ledges in this crag, right? So as they're climbing
Mhm.
up, if they were to fall, then there's possibility they might fall into a ledge. Just helping them kind of like talk through and think about risks like that where they may not have before, and
Yeah.
decide, okay, what do you feel good about? Another thing that I always like to talk to pregnant climbers about is the way they feel when they leave either their day outside or their workout in the gym. And if you're leaving with a lot of anxiety of like, oh, I
Mm.
don't know if I should have done that, maybe I shouldn't have fallen like that, I really like to tell them to just hone into that and kind of listen to that, because that's not a good feeling. That's not how we
No.
want to feel. We want to feel like, oh, that was really fun. Like, I had a really great session. That
Yeah.
was awesome. So if you're getting increased anxiety around climbing, then that may be something that you want to think about a little bit more, in terms of like, maybe the intensity was a little too high, or maybe the type of climbing, like bouldering versus rope climbing.
Right.
So there's different ways that we can kind of navigate that. And then as far as like the actual climbing during pregnancy, my biggest thing is that I just tell people to try and fall in love with climbing again, because it's not a performance oriented season. You're not going to do
No.
like what climbers called red point. Like, you're not going to send your hardest route. That is just not going to happen. And you're not going to hold on to this top of the mountain performance. Be okay with that. And sometimes that's
Right.
like really hard for people to stomach because they're like, oh, yes, I will. I'm like, okay, we'll get back to you on that.
Yeah. That darn athlete mindset, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So, but I think like prepping them from the beginning and just being
Yeah.
really honest, I find is the most helpful because it helps with expectations. Because
Mhm.
when they start to be able to not do things as hard as what they once could, or they start to feel, maybe it's like less powerful, a little more sluggish, or whatever it is, they're like, oh, this is normal. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew this was coming instead of being blindsided by it is what
Right.
I find is most helpful.
Oh, that's funny. So, as you were talking, I had this strange little memory that popped into my head. When I was 9 weeks pregnant with my oldest, we had a trip scheduled for Costa Rica. And so we went and we did waterfall rappelling. And we also did like a little like boat trip and stopped at a little island and they had like a little cow there and they tried to feed us like unpasteurized cheese. And I remember the boat guide saying, he's like, so wait, you're pregnant. You just rappelled down a waterfall, but you won't eat cheese. And I'm like, yeah, Americans. But I remember back, I don't remember thinking, and again, it was a fun thing. It wasn't anything that I was
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, of course, it'll be fun. It'll be great. But I don't remember like regretting it or being freaked
Right.
out. But that was only my experience too. But I love what you're saying, and this comes up a lot with other sports, is like to have the agency and the education to be able to make that choice yourself. And I think for so long, we talked about this earlier, like PTs were really good at saying no. And I don't know about you, but if somebody tells me to stop doing what I love to do without any reasoning other than they don't know what they're talking about, la 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 la, my ears, like I'm done. I'm gonna not listen to you from there forward. So I do think you can buy so much more trust and collaboration with your client, even if you're not a climber, to try and meet them where they are. Well, you mentioned
Mhm,
this earlier, like try and understand what they're
mhm.
doing. Try, even if you don't experience it yourself. Like that's how I got into CrossFit, where I was like, crap, I need to learn how to do this so that I can have an intelligent conversation with somebody and I'm not just telling them no with really no good reason or understanding of what they're doing. So
Right.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's such an important thing to build that therapeutic alliance kind of in the beginning so you have that person that you trust is going to kind of put this together for you. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I remember one of my first appointments I went to, it's like, okay, like you're
Yeah.
pregnant, blah, blah, blah. And what do you do for physical activity? And they're just taking notes. And I said, oh, I really like to rock climb. And the doctor looked right at me and goes, well, you're going to have to stop that
Make me know
now.
anything.
And it's just like it's just I mean, I understand why they say that because to them it's just a very risky activity and it's their
Yeah.
job to bring, me and baby through a safe, healthy pregnancy.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, I've been a climber for like 10 years now, and I pretty sure I know a lot more about climbing than you do. So how about we have a discussion about this instead
Yes.
of you just telling me, well, you're gonna have to stop that now.
Yes. I
Yeah.
agree. I
But the
agree. That's
other thing of it
go ahead.
is that then I just lied about it, you know?
Right.
I was
Because
like,
no, I can
okay.
totally see, and I've talked to clients that have done that, and they're like, "Well, I just don't talk to them about that."
Mhm.
And I've had my own things where I'm like, "Okay, I know your stance on this. I don't agree with it. I'm just not gonna talk to you about it because you don't know what the hell you're talking about." And
Mhm.
that's not good either.
Mm-mm. It's not.
Oh, man. Yeah. So and it's probably even harder to be like, "Hey, let me find a climbing friendly OBGYN."
Mhm.
It's hard enough to find, somebody that is okay with you being active and things like that. Switch now to the postpartum side of things. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sure that's even more entertaining what the what the advice is.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I mean, I'm sure as you can appreciate, really with the postpartum, it's like, how long do I have to wait?
Yeah.
How long do I have to wait before I can go climbing?
Yep.
And I always say, I'm like, well, it depends. It depends.
Yeah.
And you feel kind of shitty for saying that, but
You just
it's
don't
the
know.
truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. But what I have found is that helping people understand some general, like, okay, you need to be able to at least X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
before you think about going climbing. I don't know when you can do X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's 1 week, maybe it's two.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 12. I don't know.
Yep.
But at least like X, Y, and Z before you're going climbing. And then helping them, when they do go back to the gym or the crag. Okay, so this is kind of what we want to think about during those first few sessions back. Like we need to keep the RPE very, very low. We
Mhm.
need to try not to climb steep things. And I go ahead and the postpartum climbers that I work with, I give them specific drills where they are connecting with their pelvic floor and TVA on the wall, like before they start climbing. So they're
Mhm.
not actually like climbing, they're just doing like kind of like activation drills,
Yeah.
but it's on the wall. And I have had a lot of success with climbers doing that because they're literally like prepping their body and their mind of what
Yeah.
we need to rewire and happen while they're climbing. And it also creates so much more buy-in instead of me having them
Yes.
do things where they're like just kind of sitting around or doing their kegels, or even like with exercises. I mean, yes, strength training is important and I have them strength train, but they want to be climbing. So if I
Right.
give them something where I'm like,
Yes.
okay, well, you can do this while you're climbing, then they'll do it.
Yes.
when you're
No,
where That's magic.
there's so much to be said for that. And again, my assumptions that I have about climbing is there's so much more of a physics component to it because your lever arms are so much more. And I can see how, it would be mentally a really big gap between here, let's do these basic mat exercises and having to do a large reach or hip flexion or things like that. Like they're just not even remotely the same thing. So I would think kind of starting to find those things on the wall is going to be so much more, I don't know, appropriate to finding the activation strategies and stuff that you're
Mhm.
looking for. But the buy-in is, I think again, you're so on point with that because, and it goes back to, I don't know if you listened to the podcast I did with James Clear with Atomic Habits.
Oh my gosh, no, but I want to.
Oh, girl,
I know. How did you
girl.
get him on here? I'm so
Okay.
impressed.
So I have friends. No,
Okay.
no, apparently he and Shivali Christopher went to college together, and she just
What?
mentioned it when I was interviewing her on the podcast, and like if you watch it, my face is like bright red because I have this huge crush. And so I had read this book more kind of like business like, but I'm
Uh-huh.
like, oh my gosh, there's so much applicability from a parent perspective, from a mom
Yeah.
perspective, from exercise. And so I had him on this fall and we were talking and he wrote the book before he was a parent. And I was like, dude, you have no idea because
Yeah.
his kids are little now. I was like, you have no idea what you need to write Atomic Habits for Parents now.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That would be like a yeah.
right. But
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I always come back to. And I think that's so important for moms when we are struggling to find a piece of our former identity and figure out how that mashes up with us being moms.
Mhm.
And that thing that we love to do, that's going to be motivating for us, getting us back in the spaces surrounded by the community that supports us. That's going to get us motivated to get back into doing those things. Those are the foundations he highlights as like being a part of building those habits back up again. And it inevitably, I don't know if you run into this. I'll give somebody something to do that totally integrates with the activity that they love, and then they're it's like 30 seconds before they're about to walk out the door and they're like, all right, was there anything else that I should be doing specifically for this? And I'm like, and I've literally said to them, I'm like, okay, I've made it so you can do it, you'll enjoy it. Like, why are we going back to this stereotypical idea that it has to be this like torture chamber of Kegels and dead bugs and stupid things that have no carryover? Like, why
Mhm.
are you still asking for that? What happened to you as a child? And I mean this quite honestly. What were we told? And I'm navigating this with my daughter right now. I'm like, because she's 9 and she talks to me, which is great. I'm like, what is going on in your head and where do these seeds get sown that you think these things, that there
Mhm.
has to be this one thing? Why can't it be integrated in what you love to do? Why does exercise have to be punishment and a checklist so you can do what you actually want?
Oh gosh, yes,
What the
this.
hell?
Yes.
Hell.
Yes. I know. Yeah. I mean, and the other part of it is like, and you actually mentioned this in an email earlier this week, I think, but it was, I think, referring to information overload and
Oh, yeah.
how that it almost is paralyzing sometimes, because I also get climbers who come to me, especially ones who have prolapse, and they've
Yes.
basically been told, well, you can't climb, we don't know how to help, and all of this other stuff, and they're terrified, which
Yes.
is, I feel like, is even harder in my mind to kind of help them through than the actual prolapse itself, because they're like, their emotional state, they're like
Yes.
so gripped up in everything that they're trying to do, because they're so scared of making their prolapse worse
Yes.
that it's really hard to unravel all of that. And I think that there is so much beauty right now in all of the information that is being shared, as far as, pelvic floor and exercise and pregnancy and all of this other stuff. But at the same time, it can be sort of paralyzing, because you're like, oh
Yes.
my God, I saw doming. I can't do this anymore. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I honestly feel sort of not bad, but I'm like, gosh, if it's this hard for, professionals like us to sort of navigate these
Yeah.
things, imagine how it must feel to someone who is not inside the bubble that we
Yes.
are, and understand all the complexities within these
Yes.
things. And they just see these like things in a silo, like the doming, or they're like, oh, I felt
Right.
pressure, now I can never run again, or things of that nature. So I think
Yes.
it's tough.
You bring up a couple good points there, because I think a lot of these pieces of information are super diluted, because they're, it's great we have social media, there's more information out there, but like, you can't tell a story in a 15-second reel. That's not the point. But people are just like, oh, it's that. Oh God, I'm scared. But like, prolapse is like the new diastasis. Like, I joke, I'm in Northern Virginia, and I joke that 99% of moms in Northern Virginia think that they have diastasis recti, and like, that much actually do. So I get to be the Oprah of like sit-ups, and like, all right, you get a sit-up, you get a sit-up. And no, but I'm serious. And
No, I love
that
it.
one's
Yeah.
so easy. I do think though that prolapse, and having navigated all these freaking things myself,
Mhm.
um, you get you understand that fear. And I don't think anything is as fearful as prolapse,
Mhm.
because there's the visual of an organ inside your body that you never knew what it looked like, all of a sudden is moving outside. It's like a weird sci-fi thing.
Right.
Then nobody told you about it, and now you feel it all the time, or you can't do the things that you want to do. Like, that's the one, like, people will pee their pants and do whatever they want all day long, but
Mhm.
not prolapse. And
Mhm.
that's the one where I feel like has such a potential. And of course, everything's like Kegels, Kegels, Kegels.
Mhm.
I've definitely been noticing there's far more overactivity involved and I think that's probably the bulk of what we see in general in pelvic floor, but that's another podcast. But even just having the discussion, you said, well, how did you get to this point? How do we unpack that fear? Because
Mhm.
that's driving a lot of this. So like, what do you do? What if I'm like, all right, Joy, I feel it all the time. They tell me it's a one. I want to climb. What do you say to me?
Well,
Where do you
first,
start?
yeah, where do I start? Oh, wow.
You
I mean,
take a deep breath.
I honestly can't tell you how many times I've actually done this. I mean, and most of the time, and it's hard. I mean, they're
Yeah.
crying, and they
Yep.
are feeling like it's over, like it's over. My climbing is over. And climbers inherently are very active people
Hmm.
otherwise. Like, lots of them like to run too and
Yep.
do all sorts of other stuff. So the first thing I usually let them know is that it's not over. Like, this isn't over. This isn't the end of anything. And I tell them to please stop Googling prolapse.
Oh my God, yes. That's the first thing I say too. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I'm like, there's nothing out there that's going to
No,
help you right now. Like, it's
no,
just not conducive to
nope.
your healing process whatsoever. And the first thing we start with is, okay, so let's look at how you're breathing. Let's look at what's going on, because I can give them, workouts or things like that. But at the end of the day, the amount of time you spend either climbing or in a workout is very, very small compared to
Yeah.
the rest of the time that you spend breathing. So that's literally the
Yep.
first thing we start with is like, okay, is your rib cage even moving whatsoever? Like,
Yeah.
what does your mobility look like at your hips and whatnot? And a lot of times they're like, oh, well, I don't know if I can. I mean, they're so locked up because they're
Yeah.
scared. And I understand that. But, I'm like, we have to start getting you like moving a little bit more. And I mean, literally, I start with some movement with really good breath. So if there's like a certain part of their rib cage where I'm like, okay, like you're really, compressed like posteriorly, then we'll do some specific breathing drills targeted at whatever it is that I
Mhm.
kind of see on the assessment that I'm doing. But then we get started like, all right, so we're going to do everything we can in a stacked position right now. And we're going to learn how to, strengthen everything around your prolapse. Basically, we're just going to make you as strong as we can, and giving them things to focus on besides the prolapse.
Yeah.
So I'll just ask them like, what, here's your, like, during your workout, your focus is this, like your focus is your stacked position, or your focus is your exhale during X, Y, and Z. And then I will ask them, at the end of each session, just to give their symptoms a number. Was it a 3 today? Was it a 4 today?
Yep.
Something like that. But to try to not focus on it, like
Yep.
every single like micro movement that they're doing.
Yes.
And I mean, honestly, we just go from there. And like with the help of their, anytime anyone starts talking to me about, pressure or symptoms that even like resemble prolapse, I'm like, if they're not with a pelvic floor PT, I'm like, you need to
Yeah.
go, please go see one. Like,
Yep.
it, you can disagree with what they say all day long. It doesn't mean you have to do what they say, but you need to arm yourself with information. Like, you need to
Yeah.
get another set of eyes on this, because that is outside of my scope of practice. Like, I cannot diagnose. I can tell you this sounds like this, so you need to go get some more
Yeah.
help. But anyway, yeah, I mean, and just going from there. And a lot of times I've found that as they start to tune into more focus on other parts of their body, so like lengthening their glutes in a hinge, or trying to stay more stacked in that squat, or feeling like their core resists gravity when they're doing a push-up, anything of that nature, it just helps them to get a little bit out of that fear pattern. And
Yeah.
inevitably, as they start to get stronger, their symptoms start improving.
Yeah. I you kind of highlight two things there I wanted to bring up. One is kind of decreasing the fear, and the other is kind of starting to build strength again. Because I think that's another thing moms don't realize. They're like, I'm gonna be strong in pregnancy. Strong in pregnancy is not equated to strong in postpartum. They are two different
Yes.
animals.
Oh gosh, wouldn't it be great if it was though?
Oh, oh Lord. You're like, I just carried around this thing. Shouldn't
I
I be strong?
know.
And it's like,
I
no,
know.
different
I
body.
know.
And so I do, I think it's such a fine line, especially when you have those clients that maybe their hypersensitivity or awareness is driven by some overactivity. It's like we need to calm shit down and
Mhm.
then balance it by replacing that, that grip, that staticness with more dynamic stability and strength. And so,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's the hardest line to walk, I think, because it takes a lot of trust and understanding. And that's where I think the education and the reassurance and just showing them, hey, you can do this, that experiential stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of times when moms are going to do their first run, I'm lucky I've got an alley out here outside the office that we will literally, and it takes about a minute and a half to go down and back, and we go super slow, like 15 minute mile pace, like super easy, just chatting. I usually got to slow them down. I'm like, we're just going to go down and back, and then we come back and like, that's done. You've done that now. You've done your first run. And they're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. And I'm like, yes. Yes, you are correct. You've got this down. Now let's keep moving the chain. Like,
Right.
let's keep
Yeah.
moving forward. So,
Yeah.
when you practice, like, are you at the, like, do you have a space at like climbing gym? Do you meet moms there? Like, what do you typically do?
So actually, like 90% of the stuff that I do is online.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, but for as far as like the climbing things, there was one thing I wanted to say, because I didn't
Yeah.
address like the climbing aspect of the prolapse. One
Mhm.
of the first things that I'll do is, depending on like their comfort level, I'm not going to push somebody like
Right.
way outside of the boundary of what's comfortable for them.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I want you to go climbing. I want you to go climb, and I want you to literally breathe the entire time
Yeah.
you are climbing, because a lot of times they will find that what they've been doing is holding their breath
I
like for
I would.
long yeah, for long durations of the climb. But when we're on really easy terrain, things that are not challenging for
Mhm.
us, like there really shouldn't be any breath holding. So even just like that first step of bringing awareness to, like, are you holding your breath while you're on the wall? And just creating small change from there, because I'm not
Yeah.
going to ask someone who's just like really got a lot going on as far as, like the fear around the prolapse and the symptoms and I mean, it's just like a mind, what, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
like,
No,
I'm going to
100%.
ask them to do something really small. I want you to go climb and just breathe. Don't hold your breath while you climb. And then we just go from there, and like increasing the demands and helping them, all right, so now we're going to try and actually, like, we're going to do one move, and I want you to try and lift your pelvic floor when you do one move. And then you're going to come back down and just try that. And the other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of climbers will say, like, I even had a professional climber ask me once, well, like, should I lift my pelvic floor, like try and lift it with each move that I make? I'm like, oh
Oh
God,
my
no. Please
get
don't.
out of the weeds, like,
Yeah, like, please
how
don't do that.
annoying is that? Go do the
Yeah.
thing you love to do and be thinking about every movement your pelvic floor makes, like,
No, I'm like,
no.
no, like, earlier postpartum, or if we're dealing with some pelvic floor symptoms or something like that, we can do some drills like
Right.
that, but we're not gonna, no,
No.
that is not how we do things.
No, no,
So
no, no, no.
yeah, anyway, the way that I coach is I will film myself. Like, if it's a climbing thing, I
Perfect.
film myself doing
Yeah.
what it is that I want them to do, and I'll explain it to them. And yeah, I mean, works pretty good.
That's awesome. No, I love that. Well, we'll have you talk at the end about your online offerings because I know you've got some new stuff coming out. All right, couple quick questions here. Favorite activity since becoming a mom?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, can I say climbing?
You can say whatever you want. There's no wrong answer.
Okay.
And it sounds
I
like
don't
it's
know.
gotten better though. Like it sounds like it's gotten, better the older you've gotten and the more kids
It
you've
has.
gotten. So that's
Yes,
awesome.
yes, I will say that, like, one of the strangest compliments anyone ever gave me, one of my best friend's dad, so, he's known me through 3 kids, and he said, "Joy, you're the only woman I've known that gets more fit the more kids she has." And I was like,
Wow.
"I love it."
You're like, okay, there's something underneath that, but I'm just gonna roll with it.
I know, I know. I was like, "There's a lot I could unpack here,
Right?
but okay, I'll
That's a little
take
North
it."
Carolina, but
Yeah.
that's awesome. All right,
I
next
know.
one. What your one piece of advice for new
Oh gosh.
moms?
If it feels hard, you're doing it right.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. That's a
Yeah.
good one. And then
Yeah.
this one, what does it mean to you to be an active mom in postpartum?
Mm. Oh gosh. An active mom postpartum. I feel like it means that you're able to challenge yourself in a way that makes your heart feel happy.
Mm,
I mean, truly, because I truly have, like, a love for movement and exercise, and, like, I love pushing myself. It's like a little bit of a problem, but I'm not willing to work on that part of myself right now.
Gotcha. I got you.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like, there, for some people, like, it's Zumba that makes their heart super
Yeah.
happy. For me, it's rock climbing that makes my heart super happy. So being able to do whatever it is that makes your heart happy, maybe not at, like, the intensity that you're used to, but even just being in that space and being able to
Yeah.
do it in a way that meets you where you're at that day. I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess to me that would maybe mean active mom postpartum.
I think that's great, and it's funny. Obviously my kids are, a little older than your two younger ones, but not as old as your first. But like, I just feel like I don't consider myself postpartum, but I also think it's important to talk about where I'm at now,
Yeah.
because when you have a new one, like, I would project everything forward 16 years. I'm like, "My kid's not sleeping. He will not sleep for 16 years." That was true for 5, but, like, you project it forward, like, "Oh my god, I'm never gonna be able to run in the morning again." No, it's fine. It's all good. Like, we're kinda like that beacon. We're like, "Hey, it's gonna be okay."
I still have to remind myself that all the time. It's
You
weird.
know
I'm like,
what?
I've already
Yeah.
done this once. I have a 16-year-old. I know things change, but sometimes I'm like, how do people like how
I
do
don't
people
know.
do this? How are other moms okay? I'm not okay.
Mm.
Like, how does
Maybe
life
that's just our
work?
new t-shirt is like, "We're not okay," and that's,
Yeah.
it's all good, right? So, all right,
Yes,
so tell me a
yes.
little bit about, if people wanna find Joy, you can find her on Instagram, Climbing with Joy. What
Mhm.
you've got some online programs either coming out or they're
Yeah.
out now. Tell us about that.
Yes. So the one that I'm really excited about right now, it's called the Postpartum Project, and it is specifically for postpartum climbers. And postpartum does not have to mean 2 weeks postpartum. It also can mean even later postpartum. It's for climbers who are looking to feel strong on and off the wall again after having a baby. And it's a really amazing program that incorporates climbing into a postpartum training program. And I had to laugh a little bit earlier when you were saying like the Oprah of sit-ups,
Yes.
because I literally filmed a video of some sit-ups in there, and in the video I'm like, okay, somebody call the postpartum police. There
Yes.
are sit-ups in your program. But
Yes.
anyway, it's really it's very near and dear to my heart because I feel like it gives climbers a way to get back into their sport with hangboarding, which is like finger training that climbers do, in a way that helps them understand, how do I do this in a way that is appropriate for where I'm at postpartum.
Yeah. I love
So,
that. I love that, and I don't know of any other postpartum climbing specific stuff out there. So if you've been looking, Joy is right here. I have brought her to your doorstep.
I
That's
know
awesome.
it's crazy. I still kind of keep waiting for like, so who else is gonna,
Right?
like,
But that's
anybody
when
else
you're
want to get in the rowboat?
right. But you know what, though? I have so much respect for people that are just like, all right, you look to your left, you look to your right, there's nothing there. And you're like, screw it, I'm going to go balls out and we're going to put it out there. And the thing is that I think it can only get us better information. And I hope some of you researchers are watching this that, hey, we need some more climbing specific research.
I know. I've already like Shafali actually lives really close to where I
Oh,
live.
nice. You'd be like, hey,
Yeah.
girl, once you're
Yeah.
done with that running thing,
I know. I also like Rita
oh,
Deering.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. She was on your podcast
Yeah.
too.
Hmm.
Yes. And I sent her a DM and was like, hey, if you ever want to do any climbing research.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, like, in, I don't know if you Celeste Goodson is in the
Hmm.
running space, and
Hmm.
she just put out a paper on running drills, and I'm like, "You
Hmm.
know what? The time has come that you don't have to be in academia anymore." I think there's so much room for clinician and, practice trainers, coaches, like, I think the time has come where we just have to know our own value and know that we just need to you don't need to go get your PhD. You need to find somebody with one who will put this and do the mashup. Like mashup's where it's at. We bastardize it and then we'll mash it up and we'll
Yay.
come up with good stuff. So thank you for being a bastardization revolution member with me.
I'm here for it. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on. Again, if you're looking for information on climbing and pregnancy and postpartum, you can find Joy at Climbing with Joy on Instagram. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you.